Morning, Savin.
Yes.
Hi, morning. So, who's gonna be your team that I'm gonna make them as a co-host so you can
Okay.
control the Zoom.
Okay.
Can you let me know which one of your team?
My team is Wong Chi.
Oh, Wang Chi. Okay. Okay. Who else? Anyone else, Savin?
Hi. May I know whether my volume is clear?
Yep. I can hear you loud and clear.
too basic.
Good morning to all guests and participants. On behalf of the Malaysian Financial Planning Council, I would like to welcome all of you to the Session 3 Retirement Planning e-Workshop 2025. I am Sabin Romani from University Malaysia Terengganu, UMT. I'm honored to be the MC for today's session. A very good morning to distinguished speakers and participants. Ladies and gentlemen, now I would like to go over a few items before we start today's sessions. You are required to fill out the evaluation form at the end of the session. The link can be found in the email sent by MFPC Secretariat, or we will share it on the chat box later. There will be a Q&A session with the speaker today, if time permits. If you have any questions for the speaker, you can submit or type the questions on the chat box. Lastly, please be reminded that the MFPC CPD point will be updated and e-certificates will be emailed to you after 14 working days, and the MFPC CPD point and e-certificates will only be issued to those who completed the evaluation form at the end of the session. With the mic. Good morning to all guests and participants. On behalf of the Malaysian Financial Planning Council, I would like to welcome all of you to the Session 3 Retirement Planning e-Workshop 2025. I am Sabin Ramani from University Malaysia Terengganu, UMT. I'm honored to be the MC for today's session. A very good morning to distinguished speakers and participants. Ladies and gentlemen, now I would like to go over a few items before we start today's session. 1. You are required to fill out the evaluation form at the end of the session. The link can be found in the email sent by MFPC Secretariat, or we will share it on the chat box later. 2. There will be a Q&A session with the speakers today if time permits. If you have any questions for the speaker, you can submit or type the questions on the chat box. Lastly, please be reminded MFPC CPD point will be updated and e-certificates will be emailed to you after 14 working days, and the MFPC CPD point and e-certificates will only be issued to those who completed the evaluation form at the end of the session. Ladies and gentlemen, it is my pleasure to introduce Mr. Ethan Teh, the Chief Operating Officer of Firmus Finance Sdn Bhd, formerly known as Money Sense Advisory Sdn Bhd. Mr. Ethan is a licensed financial planner and financial advisor representative with intensive experience in both conventional and Islamic finance planning. He has dedicated his career to empowering individuals to take charge of their finance, helping them to manage debt, cash flow, plan for their children's education, and achieve financial security for retirement. He holds a bachelor degree in civil engineering and a master of business administration from the University of Malaysia, Sabah. In addition, he is a registered financial planner, RFP, certified financial planner, CFP, HRDC certified trainer, and a Sharia registered financial planner, SRFP. Beyond his professional practice, Mr. Ethan is an active contributor to the financial planning industry. He currently serves as a board member for the Certification and Continuing Professional Development at the Malaysian Financial Planning Council, MFPC, and as treasurer and executive committee member of the Association of Financial Advisors Malaysia, AFA. Mr. Ethan has also been featured on numerous media platforms, including RTM2, City Plus FM, Nanyang Press, and MBSJ Coffee Talks, where he regularly shares his insight on financial management and personal finance. Please join me in welcoming Mr. Ethan Teh, Chief Operating Officer of Firmus Financial Sdn Bhd.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Sabin. Can you hear me? Can all of you hear me? Hi.
Yes, Mr. Ethan, we can hear you.
Okay, good. Let me share my screen. So are you looking at the right screen? Do you get my slide on the full? Someone muted me. Okay, so do you see my slide in the full screen, or you see my presenter view? I just want to confirm this thing.
Yeah, I can see your full screen, a full slide.
Slide on a full screen.
Yep.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so thank you to Mr. Sabin for the long introduction and for how to say being MC for this session today. So first thing I would like to ask, do you find these slides like very funny? I mean, okay, throughout the session, feel free to have yourself to participate in the chat. I mean, you can type question along the way. And you can, I hope you can participate lah, because it's about workshop, right? So, and all of you are very familiar with online platform nowadays. So I hope that it will be more interactive so that I won't feel boring, okay? And I hope that at least I can engage you for 1 hour. Okay, so first of all, and at the same time, if you think that you have question and you want to speak out, I'm also okay. Okay, if let's say I'm not sure whether the setting is allowed for you all to unmute and ask question, or if it's better, then you just type in the chat box lah. So first of all, I would think that while I was preparing for this this retirement planning workshop, right, and when I see that it's for youth, I find this is exactly how I feel. The giraffe that you see in the photo. Okay, so when I started to do my this presentation deck, right, as I was browsing browsing along to see that which is suitable, then I found that, hey, this is interesting because this is exactly my feeling. Youth, okay, and this is a group of undergraduate, means you are still studying in university, right? And yet we want to talk about retirement. Isn't it a very long way to go? Okay, so do you find that it's really long way to go? Because I have not even really start full-time working, and now yet I'm here to hear about retirement planning. Okay, so this is exactly how I feel that time. Okay, so that is why that I feel I want to use this deck for this presentation. Okay, I supposed to introduce myself, but I think Mr. Savin already done the introduction. So maybe I spend some time here if you want to get connected. So that would be my LinkedIn product profile, and the other one will be Facebook. I understand for your Facebook is for old people, right? Yeah, okay. So of course my generation's Facebook is still there, and I still have my friends there, so I have to keep it. Okay. So anyhow, if you want to get connected, okay, so you can just connect to me via these two, or you can always search for me online. I mean, I have my personal blog page, which is www.ethanday.com. Okay, so without wasting more time, let us start our session for this morning. Okay, so my first question here: what age do you think people should start planning for retirement? Okay, type your answer in the chat box if you don't mind. Okay, so it's not what age do you think people should retire, right? I'm talking about what age do you think people should start planning about for retirement? ASAP. So from Alex say ASAP. So ASAP, does it means that yesterday? Since born. No, for second year one start work. Okay, second year one start work. Are you sure? Starting from work, Radia, Loga, Swati, second year, and then Radia say that starting from work. Fu say that once starts earning. In that case, right? So have you all started? Because the answer that says that what? When was it start? Since born. So Miss Wong, your Yok Yen, maybe you want to tell us, have you start to plan for your retirement? Any one of you? Have any one of you start to plan for retirement? Okay. Yes, I have started. Wow, very good to hear that. Okay, maybe at the end of this session, maybe you have something that you want to how to say, you can share with us. What have you been doing? Okay, or whether what I'm sharing today, does it actually go in the same direction with your planning, right? Okay, good to know all that. Okay, so then because of all your answer, right, then my second slide doesn't work because I was expecting you to say that no, we should start wait, already retired, still need to plan. Wow, Mr. Teo. Okay, later on. Okay, so I thought that many will say that maybe by the age of 30, 35, when my income is stable, right? Like one of the answers that I get just now, right? Or when you have ability to generate income, or that one is for sure lah. But unfortunately, Oh, okay. Maybe Sauki, you can attend to that. Okay, about request from Putri No Pakis that some other way for friends who want to join the Zoom session, they didn't get the link in the email. Okay, maybe you can share the link. Okay, thank you. Okay, so I thought that many of you will say that, oh, when I'm 30, 35, or 40, but then unfortunately, or fortunately, I mean, all of you are having the right mindset that the retirement planning should start as early as possible. But anyhow, because I already prepared my deck in such a way, right? I still need to continue, right? So that, which is why I would say that, what if I tell you retirement plan starts now? Okay, for those some of you who have not answered, maybe you have a different answer, right? So the answer is, what if I say that the retirement plan should start now? Okay, let us look at why. Okay, let us look at why. Yeah. Okay, let us look at why. Okay, so you see, so this is a very common questions. Okay, so imagine there are two person here. One is Joe, one is Bob. Okay, so let me explain what does Joe do from step by step, and you tell me. Okay, you can tell me by typing in the chat box, whether you want to be Joe or you want to be Bob. Okay, so this is the very common thing. Okay, first for Joe, right? Start saving from the age, 500 a month from the age of 21. Okay, this is uncommon people. Agree? Uncommon people. Okay, but we have few just now that already started to plan for retirement. Okay, then but the most, the majority of the people that we have gone through through our life, okay, even our experience, okay, a lot of people will think that now my earning is not that high, okay, so it will be very difficult for me to save, okay, or plan for retirement or whatever reason. Okay, we just talk about savings. I believe that after 10 years or after 15 years, my income will increase a lot. So never mind, by the time I can save a lot more. So what can 500 do nowadays? Nothing much, right? So I rather, okay, now I just want to settle all my things, my daily expenses, and then I want to enjoy a little bit first. So I think I will start to save later on. Okay, so maybe about 35. By the time the income will be a lot more higher, right? So I will start to save 1,000 by the time. So how many of you will think that you want to be Joe, or how many of you will think that you're thinking like Bob? Okay, of course, Alex is Joe. Okay, and I believe a few of you. Oh, so Joe. Okay, so you want to start now as early as possible. Any Bob? No one. Okay. Or should I assume that besides the four who answers, others are those who didn't answer will be thinking like a Bob? Okay, so okay, what happened here is, you see, if you go right, if you start at the age of 21, you only need to save for 15 years. Huh? And Joe and Bob, who save for 1,000 a month starting from age 35, will need to save for 26 years. Okay, 15 years versus 26 years. And yet, by the end, right, when they reach age 60, right, Joe will have 936,000. And Bob only have 881,000. So do you see what is happening here? Okay, Joe only 500 a month, and he only has to save for 15 years, and by the age of 60, he could have accumulated near to 1 million. And Bob, okay, he started a little bit late, but he saved a lot more, doubles, for 1,000 a month, and he even saved for 26 years. But when he reached age 60, he only have 880,000. So what is happening here? So if you know this today, definitely you want to be Joe, right? Okay, and a lot of you, without knowing this, already chose to be Joe. Okay, so but don't take my words just as what I have said, right? So this is the calculation. Okay, so what happened here is, assuming that both of them, right, are actually investing in something that give the return of 7% a year. Okay, 7% a year. So Joe save for 6,000 a year for 15 years, which he start at the age of 20 and end at 34. After that, Joe did nothing more. Okay, Joe does not save further. Just because of the amount that he accumulated by the age of 34, it will grow to 936,000 when he reaches age 60. So how much have Joe totally saved? 90,000. And how about Bob? Bob, because he thinks that in his early age, he want to enjoy a little bit more, okay, get what the things that he want first, okay, and start when start to save when he earns more later on. So by the age of 35, he started, and he saved for 26 years with 12,000 a month. And with this, right, over the 26 years, he actually, in total, he saved, the amount that he saved is 300,000, okay, compared to the 90,000 that actually saved by Joe. And yet he only reached at 880,000. So by now, right, so who do you want to be? Okay, so for those who have not responded, maybe some of you think that I would like to have the life of Bob, but looking at this, does this change your mind? So any one of you, I believe some of you are students from finance, right? Or financial planning. So what is happening here? What is the thing that happening? What are the things that are happening here? So why is it so? So what do people call this in investment or in financial planning? Anyone? Time horizon? Yes, of course. Okay, so time horizon is how long you, the time that you have for being invested. Of course, yes, Wong or Yong Yen got it correct, compounding. This is what we call it compounding effect, right? The effect of compounding, okay? Or so if you follows, if you are in finance or in investment, so you may have heard this from Warren Buffett also, right? So the power of compounding. Okay, anyhow, I just get a quote from internet. So I don't know who is Navid Dali actually. Okay, but I like this quote. Compounding has a snowball effect. So it is just a tiny ball, right? Of at the very start, right? But it can turn into a avalanche, okay, over time. So as you grow and as you grow, right? So it will turn bigger and bigger and bigger. And that is when, after a long period of time, okay, you will see what are the result of your tiny effort. So this is also one of the reason, right? A lot of people find that financial planning, investment, or savings for retirements are not encouraging. Okay, because for the first few years, right? For the first few years, imagine you are Joe now. You start to save at the age of 20. Okay, so you put in 6,000 a year. Okay, at the end of 5 years, okay, you already spend by the age 25, right? You already save for 6 years. You think that I have already worked so hard, I put aside 500 a month and I save 6,000 a year, and after 5 years I put in 36,000, and yet I only have 45,000 in my savings. Don't you find it discouraging? Because 45,000, if let's say you think that what can I do with 45,000 nowadays, right? Okay, so it's still not even enough for me to get my dream car. So it's like very discouraging, right? So you would think that, so for 45,000, would I be able to retire? Okay, but you see, when if let's say you let it grow further and let it compound by itself, the times will tell you that it can turn into 1 million with just 500 a month for 15 years. That's all. Okay. So this is why the compounding effect is just like a snowball. It started very small. Okay. So don't get discouraged. If you know what you are aiming for, you know where you are going, then it will turn into a very it will turn into gigantic a snowball, or even it could be a avalanche. Okay. So this is something that I hope that I can leave it with you all. Okay, so with that, let us since our topic today will be about retirement planning, right? Okay, so let us start with what is the Malaysian retirement landscape? So where do people, I mean, most Malaysians save for retirement? EPF, right? Agree? EPF, this is the thing that most of the, I mean, anyone who start to work, you will start to contribute to your EPF, and your employer will contribute partially for you. And for those who are working on our own, or gigs economic worker, or self-employed, our government, or even for housewife now, our government even encourage those people, I mean, the Malaysians to actually save in EPF for themselves also, right? So there are big, there are, how to say, incentive like Aisara and a lot more lah. Okay, for youth, okay, if you start to plan for your retirement, there are also certain incentive. Okay, so EPF is the base, or I mean, one of the things that everyone actually, when we talk about retirement, it cannot be avoided. Okay, then we have retirement gap. So even though with EPF in place, right? So, but then we still see a lot of these newspaper, or even on social media, a lot of news, a lot of sharings coming out that saying that EPF itself cannot sustain someone's retirement, and 96 or 98% or whatever figures that we have, that Malaysians have not enough to retire. And of course, the third scenario, situation now is the aging populations of Malaysian, right? So why is it aging population? Because people nowadays live longer, healthier, and of course, we used to have more babies earlier on. Now, okay, so the numbers of Malaysians aging is getting bigger and bigger, right? Okay, so with this, the burdens, I mean, the social support, and a lot of things, okay, will become a bigger and bigger burden, and which is why we need to think more about how we can take care of ourselves when we grow old later on. Okay, just imagine, I mean, how many of you here will think that you would want to rely on your children later on when you come to retirement? I mean, it used to be a norm, right? So when a generation, how to say, work, deliver children, and then as they grow old, the children will take care of the aging parents to support financially. Okay, but then as the time pass by, right? So nowadays, I think most of the people would know that it is quite tough to take care of both the older and also the younger generation, right? So most of us would want to be able to take care of ourselves, right? Financially, at least, when we are in retirement. Okay, let us start with EPF. So what is EPF basically? So EPF is the foundation, but is it the full solution? Okay, so EPF basically is mandatory savings for employed Malaysians. So contribution will be 11% from employees and 13% from employer. Okay, but it will be good news if you are getting only 12%, because if let's say your salary starts with 5,000 and above, then the employer mandatory contribution will be only 12%. But is there any how to say, there are also a lot of companies out there that actually pay more than 12 or 13%. But this is the minimum that you are going to get from your employer, and it is required by the act. Okay, so how does EPF works now? Sorry, I missed out. It should be 3 accounts. So account 1 will be a retirement, which is 75% of your EPF savings. Then account 2, you have for emergencies like housing, education, and many more. So that will be a 15%, and account 3 will be a 10%. It's flexible, so you can withdraw when you need it. Okay, so and the historical data of EPF is about 4 to 6% for the dividend payout annually, and this you can, I mean, you can get the data anywhere lah. Okay, just Google it, or you just use anything. Okay, so you see that this is the historical data, but according to EPF Act, the minimum that the EPF savings dividend will be declared will be 2.5%. So you can see that long time ago it used to be lower, but I mean, with the efficiency of the investment from by the EPF investment team, I think for the reasons here, 4 to 6 is quite achievable. Okay, so what are the limitations here? Okay, first of all, this is actually a forced saving, and a lot of people doesn't really analyze whether this is enough or not. Okay, so never think of it. Just think that since I already have EPF, so I will just leave it to EPF. Okay, so whether it's enough or not, okay, no one answer. So basically, on average, right, on a EPF statistic, most of the people doesn't have enough for retirement. Okay, why? So what you can see here is actually the contribution is about 20% right? 11% from the employee and about 12% from employers. That's about 23%. So do you think that out of, I mean, while you are working, right, out of your 20, let's say you start to work about 25 and we plan to retire about 30, in 30 years, 55 or 60, and you are going to live for another 25 to 30 years later on. So with the, how to say, it's less than a quarter of saving of what you're earning now, okay? And you accumulate over time. Do you think that it could be enough to sustain your full lifestyle later on? Okay, so this is the challenge that we are facing. Okay, so and a lot of people, of course, there are also people who are having a lot, I mean, enough just by EPF itself. Those who are, I mean, they, although they earn a lot, but they maintain quite a moderate lifestyle. Of course, there are cases like that. But the question here is, do we plan for it? Do we assess it? Or actually we leave it to chance? Okay, has we actually thought of it, or just by chance when I reach retirement age, oh yeah, I have enough, or when I reach retirement age, oh, I'm sorry that I don't have enough, right? Okay, and of course there are times that people withdraw monies for housing or education. Okay, so from account two that allowed for all these things, then it will become like, so you deplete your savings for retirement. So my question here, let us have some interaction again. So is it a good idea to withdraw your EPF savings to pay for your housing loan? Yes or no? Yes means I think that it's a good idea that I can withdraw my EPF to pay for my housing loan. No means that I think that no, I shouldn't withdraw my EPF from account two to pay for my housing loan. Anyone have any idea? So would you do that? No. Okay. One say no. One. Some say yes. Okay. No, yes, no, yes. A mixture of, and mainly say no, right? Okay. So yeah, that's why I know. You are very good in calculation, right? So you understand it. Okay. When uh the because EPF are paying you dividend about 5% annually, and our housing loan interest rate is about 3 point something to 4% now, right? So as long as if you can manage, right, there's no reason for us to withdraw our EPF money to pay off our mortgage loan early. Agree? Because the money that you save in EPF will give you more return. And in long run, actually, you keep on paying. I mean, although you keep on paying installment with the banks, but with the money that you keep in the EPF, it will grow bigger and bigger, right? Like the snowball that we see earlier. So there's no reason for us to withdraw from, how to say, EPF to pay off our uh, housing loan. Okay, so very good that you all understand this. But except for certain situation, okay, if let's say sometimes that because we have cash flow problem, okay, for the example, for the pandemic, for the past few years, some people may lose income. Okay, then how about our housing loan? Okay, of course, that time there was moratorium given by the banks, right? Okay, so that people can stop the installment for some a period, a short period of time. So it helps to relieve. And but anyhow, maybe there are some times that retrenchment or anything happen. So it could be an emergency account that actually help us to get through tough time. Okay, but of course, if let's say from a perspective of the value, okay, or should we or should we know from the value? I mean the value that whether which one is worth it to do. Of course, you should keep on paying your installment and you should keep your money in EPF. Okay, so except for certain situation of emergency. So don't think that since I have it, why don't I use it, right? Okay, anyhow, it's still for the purpose of retirement. So, but what is more concerning will be this one, right? You see, it's not from me. 96% of Malaysians cannot afford to retire with their EPF savings. Okay, so this is a sad reality, right? You know, everyone thinks that I have EPF. EPF is for my retirement, but itself, EPF have already mentioned that Malaysians inadequate, okay, retirement savings in the EPF. So which is why we should look into it, right? Okay, so EPF earlier on EPF basic savings was I think about 240,000, and it has been raised to 390,000. But even 390,000, do you think this will be enough to take care of your 20 years or 30 years in retirement? Okay, I'll leave it to you. Okay, so if we know that we cannot rely on EPF itself, we know that we need to plan for it. Okay, so what can you, what options do you have now? Okay, so there are actually three things that I would suggest that you can start to consider, right? Okay, first of all, of course, about retirement, then we have EPF and other approved scheme. Okay, so one of the approved scheme that we have will be PRS, right? And I believe that we have a CEO of PRS, that PPA, that will be sharing with you all later on about PRS. So I will not get into deep about PRS. But of course, why do we first think of all these things? Why, whether it's an approved scheme or not? First of all, there could be some incentive. Okay, so listen carefully for the second hours later on. The incentive will be there. Okay, I don't have any incentive for you, and of course, like approved scheme normally come with tax relief. Okay, if you, we should always try to maximize those tax relief as if it is in line with our direction and our financial goal. Okay, so you see that we have a lot of different type of tax relief, right? Personal lifestyle, okay, insurance, EPF, donation, all those things, right? And so these are the things that when you are trying to choose between, because there are so many investment vehicle out there. Okay, so for the retirement, you can choose to save in FD, you can choose to invest in stocks, or you can choose to buy bond, and you can choose to invest in unit trust. So every different type of investment vehicles, they are all they have their own advantages and disadvantages. So why I say that first thing that we have to go through is we first think of all these approved scheme first. Because of this, the government may have incentive for you, and there could be tax relief. And the third thing, this applies to all, is the cost of investment or transaction. Okay, so certain scheme you have to pay very high cost for maintenance, but you have to weigh it whether it how to say it justify with other factors like time savings, the knowledge that or the expertise that you can write on, a lot of things. And so these are the things that you have to consider. Then the second thing is you must also consider your personal financial plan. Okay, so your savings and your investment. So what you need to do is do your budget. Have any one of you have budget? Know how much you're going to spend. Do your budgeting. Keep track of your expenses. Any one of you? Yes or no? Yes, good. Okay, I will expect that from Yukin. Kariana also very good. Okay, so you have to do your budget. Then you know that whether you are in positive cash flow or negative cash flow. Okay, so why budgeting is very important nowadays? Okay, if you are looking at the statistic of bankruptcy, right, a lot of bankruptcy are due to what, personal loan or credit card loan. So why does this happen? During our parents' time, my parents are maybe not your parents, because your parents could have been my age. Okay, so during my parents' time, but at that time, right, there will be like you cannot overspend what you don't have. Okay, this month if you get this much of salary, So you will spend this much. At the end of the month, when you don't have money, you cannot spend further. Right? But nowadays, right, you can spend a lot more than what you actually have. And sometimes you don't even know it. You get what I mean? So the first thing is credit card, right? So my generations, when I start work, we already have credit cards. Okay, and that time credit cards, you can easily get 10 times, 20 times of your uh, income. Okay, because the first one you get could be 3 times or 5 times. But once you get the first card, you can get the second card easily, and third and fourth. So easily you can have 10 times or 20 times of your money salary credit limits at one time. So imagine that you can spend your 19 months futures money. So this is what is happening, right? Yeah, as exactly Logaswati. Yes, this is what I want to mention. And now for your generation, right? We even have this BNPL, buy now, pay later. So buy now, pay later is even more convenience. It's only in your phone, right? You can actually click it anytime. Okay, 11/11 just passed, right? Have you bought anything on Shopee or Lazada? Okay, so I use Shopee most of the time, right? So it's easy. You can pay later, 6 months, 12 months. So you see, all these problems actually, initially very conventional type of loan, right? It's more for how to say, more for us to finance our big item or our assets that we want to accumulate or something that we really need it. Okay, for example, housing loan. If you don't get a loan for housing loan, for a house, right, it will take you a very long time to save up the money. Okay, so which is why it actually help us to own our house, cars, okay, vehicle, which is big item. But what happened nowadays is all this credit, BNPL or being credit card, right, is not for us. I mean, most of us use it not for something that we need. Agree? It's for something that we want. Okay, the thing in the Shopee Lazada, right? If you think that you cannot buy it now, and you need to go for BNPL, I will say that you should actually think thrice, not twice. It's thrice, 3 times. Do I need it? Never mind, put it in the cart. Put it in the cart. Come and revisit again a few days later on. Do you still want it? Okay. Or else, better if still don't put it in the cart yet, because the apps also know what we are doing, right? You want to slow down our decision making, because when you put it in the cart, then a few days later they will notify you, oh, 16% cheaper than when you first put it in the cart. It's like another reminder for you to buy it. Okay, but anyhow, so you have to control ourselves. We have to control ourselves, right? So if let's say it's something that I cannot afford to pay now to own it, then I may want to think whether I need it or not. Okay, so this is another thing. So which is why you have to do budgeting, and then of course build up your emergency fund. We don't want anything when things happen, right? So let's say, I mean, things can happen anytime, like COVID pandemic. No one actually thought of it, and then suddenly everyone is locked down and you lost income for a few months. Okay, so and also it actually changed a lot of perception of the people that emergency fund should be more than 3 months or 4 months. Okay, so it's depending on how salient you are and how easy are you to create another income. Okay, so and also maybe if you need, you can, I mean, nowadays there are a lot of AI learning platform, or you will prefer a human advisors that you can learn more about all these plan. Okay, fund budgeting, emergency. Okay, you can look for financial planner also. And finally is protection and risk management, because we don't want disruption to our plan. So this is part of the plan. Even though we are talking about retirement planning, we have to think also about risk mitigation plan. So what if I have a major medical condition? So this money I supposed to save for my retirement, and then because of medical situation, I have to spend it, right? Or else I cannot even reach retirement. Okay, so then this is in a whole thing. Okay, retirement planning itself is not like we are just thinking about saving for retirement. So we have to look for many other angles. Okay, so I hope this is the thing. Yeah, self-satisfaction. Okay, so yeah, a lot of time it end up in the recycle center, right? Okay, so what can you do now? So Three things. First, you must know what is your retirement goal, because if you, begin with end in mind, right? So if you have something that you know you want to go and chase for, then it's easier for you to be on track and then keep, disciplined enough to continue. But if let's say you don't know what you are doing, then you'll find it not interesting, or you'll find it you will give up early. Okay, just like the example that I shared about the compounding effect just now. If let's say you don't know that you have not planned for it, you don't know that at the end you end up with the 1 million with just 500. After a few years, the first initial few years, it will be really quite discouraging, right? Because you doesn't see the amount growing. Okay, but if you know and you actually can foresee what is happening in the future, then it will be a lot more encouraging. And everyone has a different retirement needs, right? So set your retirement goal. Okay, so I will tell you a quick calculation later on, or anyone of you already have the calculation. Okay, never mind, we'll talk about it later on. Then the second thing that you can do, of course, is start savings. So it's a habit that you need to build up from young, right? And then the last one is financial literacy, continuous learning. Okay, that in our current world, I would say that change is the only constant, right? The only thing that doesn't change is change. Okay, you cannot avoid change. Okay, so I lived through the generation without phone, without mobile phone, and then now I'm literally holding a small computer in my hand and I do everything. And for the past 1 week, I didn't even have any cash with me, not even 1 ringgit. I just have my coins in my car. That's all. Okay, so I can live for the past 1 week. Okay, and I travel here and there. So the world is already changing, and so we have to continuously understanding how we can benefit for it. Okay, let us start with this one. How can you know? Okay, so have you ever calculate your the amount that you need for retirement? Anyone of you? Probably Yokian, right? So you know that you have been start saving for your retirement, right? So what is your number? Do you mind to share your number? How much you need for retirement? Anyone that already have your number? That you know this is the amount that I need. 3 to 4 million. Okay, quite fair. Okay. Besides Yokian, no one else? Okay. EPF says we need 1.3 million. Do 3.6? Wow. Okay, some of you have done your calculations. EPF says 1.3 million. So, but would you live the type of a life that EPF suggests you to live? Okay, so everyone has different need, right? Depending on where you are and how is your lifestyle. Okay, so there's no perfect answer for this. Let us go for a quick calculation. Okay, so how can you know is the first step is you need to determine the lifestyle you want during retirement. So what do I mean with this is, okay, yeah, depending on the age you are right now. Okay, so first thing is determine the lifestyle you want during retirement. How I determine is basically I am telling myself the lifestyle I want is like 8,000 or 5,000 a month in today's money. So what is your lifestyle? The amount needed to sustain your lifestyle as of today. Let's say you are talking about 5,000. Okay, so 1 year I need 60,000. That is right now, right? But this 60,000, right, annual income that I need when I come to retirement, right? My retirement years is of course different from your lah. Mine is a lot nearer already. Okay, so just make sure the family must have enough food on the table and a good living style. Yes, this is very qualitative, or this is a statement. So we must know what does that translate into. Okay, so Lim coming, right? So what does that translate into in numbers of today? So we determine it by a numbers, a figures, 5,000, 8,000, 10,000, up to you. So this will be your choice. So how do you know whether 5,000, 8,000, or 10,000? Then look at your current expenses, track your expenses. Okay, 5 to 6,000. And then of course you want to calculate the retirement income required when you factor into inflation after 10, 15 years or after 20 years. And then finally, the step 3 is, so if that is what I want, what is the lump sum retirement fund that I need? Okay, so let me show another screen. Okay, let us go for practical calculation rather than keep on talking about this, right? Okay, let me show this also. Okay, so it's here. So you can see the financial calculator, right? Screen sharing, I hope. Okay, so basically it's free. So you can come here, fncalculator.com, or you can download the apps available on both Android, iPhone, or others. 3 things. So you go for TVM calculator. So for example, I will use the numbers from Kao Ming, right? Okay, 5 to 6,000. Can I assume 6,000? Okay, so 6,000 today in the year means 72,000. Agree? So this will be the present value. So how young are you now, Mr. Lim? Never mind, you just let me know how many years more when you come to retirement. So if let's say for me, I'll be about 10, 15 years. 10 years more, okay, 10 years more. So 10 years. So remember to change the period to annual, right? Okay, so what would be the fair inflation rate that you think nowadays? Oh, Shamini, 37 years more to retirement. Good, enjoy your life. Okay, so I have more than halfway past already. Okay, so I'll go for the coming one, 10 years. So 5%, 4%. Let us take 5% since this is coming case, right? So this 72,000, okay, after 10 years, right, it will become 170,000. Okay, so if you want to maintain the same lifestyle as of today, so we have to factor in inflation, right? So after 10 years, right, instead of 72,000, you actually need 117,000. So my next question is 117,000. Okay, so that would be now you have to take this and you have to put it here because that will be our annual income when we come to retirement, right? Okay, so let's say that when you come to retirement, you want to put your money in a little bit of FD, little bit of balance fund, okay, or bonds that actually, let's say we talk about 5% return as well, lah. Okay, so then this number annual rate now will become the rate of return that you expect from your savings, right? Okay, some part of EPF, in the EPF, some in the FD, some in the equities, whatever. So it come up to about 5% annual return. So how long do you think you will live in retirement, coming from your retirement age to the day that we don't need money anymore? How long do you think you will live? 15 years? I start to wonder how young are you? Okay, but anyhow, never mind. Okay, so we go for the coming number. Okay, so we put to beginning. Why beginning mode is because you want the amount. Okay, you need the income once you come to retirement. You have to withdraw the first income already. You cannot say that when I come to retirement, then I have wait for and after 1 year only I start to withdraw my annual income. Cannot. Okay, so with this, right, how much does Kao Ming need when he reach his retirement age? 1.278 million. This is exactly the amount that you need when you arrive at your retirement age. Okay, so this is a very quick calculation that we assume that the investment, this amount money, okay, what does this mean is, so if let's say Kao Ming have 1.278 million when he reaches retirement age, and he invest in something that give him 5% a year, so every year, right, he can withdraw 117,000 during his retirement, okay, for the time of 15 years. So this is the meaning of this. So if let's say you are going for 20 years, then of course you have different number. So you will need to have 1.53 million. So this is just a quick calculation that whereby we assume that what? We assume that in the inflation stop when we come to retirement age, or as we grow older, you have need the need will be lesser and lesser. Okay, so now coming have his number. Okay, so it's about 1.3 million okay, for his retirement. So are we good? Yes, this means it is a sum capital that you need to accumulate. Okay, can you show the calculation again? Sure. Okay, let me go on with that. How about okay, give me your numbers. So what's your desired lifestyle? Let's say I want to turn it into a month that you need today as of money today. 15K a month. Okay, 15K a month, then I would say that it's 180,000 a year. Agree? So how many years more for you to reach your retirement age? From now until the age of you retire? 14. So 14, So can I say that, assume that the inflation rate is 4%? Is it good enough? Okay, 4%. Okay, so with that, right, then we have to calculate after 14 years, 180,000 means 311,000 a year. So this will be the amount that you need every year to keep your retirement lifestyle as what you want, a 15,000 a month lifestyle. So this will be your payment, right? Because it will be your annual income. So I assume that when come to retirement, you can still have a 6% return in your investment. Assume EPF about 5%, some shares, okay, but you do your asset allocation, okay. How long would you need to spend in retirement from the day you retire and the day that we go and meet our ancestor? We will skip that first, coming, then okay, let's say 20 years to be fair. If you retire at age 55 to 75, okay, 20 years. So beginning mode, right? So how much you need when you come to retirement? Are you ready for the number, Jong-Yen? 3.78 million, okay, or 3.8 million, okay. So this is just a very basic type of calculation to maintain your lifestyle, that how much you need for retirement. Regarding to the question about coming, right, does this include loan repayment? Most of us, the question now is the situation in the society now is we are paying loan for 70 years, 80 years, right? Up to age 70. So do you want to actually continue to pay your housing loan when you come to retirement? So that is also another part that you need to manage in your budget and in your financial plan. If you plan to retire at age of 50, do you want to continue to pay your loan until age of 70? Okay, so things to okay, so this is just a quick calculation that wow, quite good. Okay, quite close to your own estimation, right? Of course, as I mentioned, we have not put into the assumption of inflation continues when you come to retirement. So for that is a lot more complicated, and I will not have time for that now. But I just want to bring up what is happening. Okay, let us come back to our slide for this morning. So I hope that it's a quick guide, okay, so that you roughly know how much you need, okay, and if you want a more proper one, you can do it yourself and you get a financial planner or financial advisor. Okay, so now you know that. So next, we talk about savings. So if you have no idea and you think that I really don't know, I know that I know that I need to save more, but right now I cannot start. I cannot save that amount of money. So you have to start somewhere, right? As your income growth, then you go. So in financial planning, right? At least this is it used to be 1/3, 1/3, 1/3, but I never put it aside. So nowadays, right? Most of the common concept that we are thinking is 50, 30, 20. So this is just a rule of thumb. Okay, so it's a quick guide, just a quick guide also. So 50% of your income you spend for what you need. Okay, you need means that you need a place to stay, you need, I mean, some things that you cannot avoid. You really need, okay, you need a transportation to get to work, all those things needs. Then 30%, okay, you may want to spend on something that you want, okay. So I want to save up that at least I have a short trip a year or a long trip every 2 years, okay. So, I mean, we have different ones nowadays, right? But please limit it, not more than 30%. And finally, at least 20% put into savings, okay, to build up your emergency fund or for long-term planning. So this is at least a rule of thumb, okay, so that how you should actually manage it. So any one of you, you're very close to this, or basically you're saving more than 20%, and you don't really spend on once, okay. So whatever it is, so this is the thing. This is the second thing that you can start to do your budgeting and plan your expenditure. And the third thing that I've mentioned just now, first we talk about knowing what you want in retirement, right? Second thing is you must know that you need to start savings now. And the third one is continue to invest in yourself, okay. So financial planning or whatever it is, financial management, I think it was not learned along our way from a kindergarten, preschool, primary, secondary, okay, even university, unless you are in finance, or else no one learn about personal financial management. Okay, so which is why, but information are a lot out there. Okay, there are a lot of good books to read. There are a lot of podcasts. Okay, so and of course you must be able to filter the information. Okay, so investment. So continue to learn from people who are you supposed to learn from. Okay, especially if you check the background of the person, whether the person is authorized to speak on the topics, whether the person is licensed to do what they are doing, or because I mean nowadays I would say that information is too much. Everyone seems to be expert, right? Okay, so even a car accident, right? When you post on Facebook or post on anything, and people will start to comment and give his personal professional opinion that this must be due to this or that, looking at the condition, at the situation, at the length of the tires mark, right? So everyone seems to be expert already, right? Okay, so but be careful of what you're learning. Always check the credential and check with different situation. And if passed, then maybe you want to talk to professionals. Okay, so continuous learning, and you know that with our investment, a lot of alternative investment available already nowadays, right? So what do we want to achieve, right? Okay, so in a long term, so now we have crypto, previously we have NFT, so a lot of things. Okay, so you have to keep yourself upgrade and understand. Okay, so this is the second thing. Okay, so I think these are the three steps that I will going to leave with you. Okay, so the three things that you can start to do today will be set a retirement goal. You know, what you need to have, or I already share with you. Start your savings habit and continue to learn about financial. So finally, okay, after 57 minutes that we have passed. I mean, for the past 57 minutes, I've been talking. So finally, maybe I would like to get one last thing from you all. So after this session, please share with me, what would you do after today? What will be the first thing that you're going to do after today? There's no right and wrong, okay? After the session, because you are going to stay here, right? So with Mr. Taufik. Okay, so after Mr. Taufik's session, after you leave the session this morning about e-retirement planning for youth, okay? So what would you do today after that? Anyone? For Yok Yen, of course, I think she will. I believe Yok Yen is a lady, right? I just can guess. Okay, so she already know her number. She already started her saving plan, and of course, I think she will continue to save towards her retirement. Okay, Coming say that. Okay, relook into the investment portfolio. Okay, good. Review your portfolio again and see if it's correct. Okay, for others who have not started, I hope after today, it is a good time that you start to look at your numbers and explore the alternative that you're going to have and see what you want to do. Okay, I think with that, I'll end my session today, and I see that Mr. Taufik is already ready. Okay, he already stretched himself. Okay, and he's ready to start to share with you about PRS, right? I think. Okay, so I'll pass it back to MIPC.
Okay.
Oh yeah,
Thank
Savin.
you, Mr. Ethan, for the insightful session just now. Ladies and gentlemen, let us now proceed with the second session. It is a privilege to introduce Mr. Taufik Iskandar, the Chief Executive Officer of Private Pension Administrator, PPA Malaysia. Mr. Taufik brings with him over 18 years of professional experience spanning investment management, business strategy, research, and public policy. He began his career in 2007 as an investment analyst with Permodalan National Berhad PNB, where he later served as a fund manager. In 2011, he joined Kumpulan Wang Persaraan, KWAP, taking on several key leadership roles, including Principal Officer at Prima Equity UK Limited, Director of Equity, Chief Executive Officer of VCAP Asset Managers Sdn Berhad, and Director of Research. In 2021, Mr. Taufik was appointed Chief Executive Officer of Penjana Capital, an initiative under Malaysia's Ministry of Finance Incorporation, where he led co-investments with global investors in both local and regional private market opportunities. He subsequently served as Managing Director of Client Advisory and Solutions as the investment banking arm of MBSB Bank, before assuming his current position as CEO of PPA. Mr. Taufik holds a bachelor degree in law and master's in management from London School of Economics and Political Science, LSE. Additionally, he earned a postgraduate qualification in investment and risk finance from University of Westminster, United Kingdom. With his extensive leadership background and deep expertise in financial strategy, Mr. Taufik continues to play a pivotal role in advancing Malaysia's financial and investment landscape. Please join me in welcoming Mr. Taufik Iskandar, Chief Executive Officer of PPA Malaysia.
Right, thank you very much, Savin. Thank you very much. And can I check whether you guys can hear me loud and clear? You can just need to give a thumbs up so that I know you guys can hear. Perfect. Thank you very much, Wong. Hafiz. Glad to be here this morning. I know it's Saturday morning, so pretty much you guys have a lot of things planned for the weekend, and yet you want to dedicate about 2 hours of your time learning about financial literacy. Okay, I want to conduct this session rather informally. I was listening to Ethan midway, and Ethan already shared with you retirement calculators. So pretty much that is the basic of retirement planning. So I don't want to dwell much further on that one, but I have slides cut out for you all. So I will go through the slide, but more importantly, please engage with me with questions, and I try to address this. Okay, join me today, my colleague Marcus, and Marcus is controlling the slide. So Marcus, can we start the slides? Moving on. All right, it's pretty much basic here, but I think most of you are students, perhaps at the final year, and about to actually enter the job market. So you guys need to know there are many types of jobs available in Malaysia, but we can categorize it either private sector or public sector. And within the private sector, you can pursue entrepreneurships. And I can see more and more young people in Malaysia willing to take on risks and pursue entrepreneurship. So that is also part of the private sector. Well, okay, within the public sector, some of you might end up and join the civil service. And within the public sector, the pension system is actually defined benefit. So you don't contribute on a monthly basis to your pension pot, but generally you are guaranteed of certain defined benefits. However, in the last 2 years, the government has started to reform the public pensions, and more new recruits will be required to contribute to their defined contribution pension pot. So they are slowly to phasing out defined benefits. I'll come back to that and perhaps touch more on this one. On private sectors, it is a self-funded system. So that means we contribute and our employer contributes. So it is defined contribution scheme. So The so-called authority to manage our defined contribution scheme is mostly EPF. What we do have so-called defined contribution scheme managed outside EPF, and they are QUAP, LTAT if you are Army, and also some others. And also, if you are not so-called a full-time employee of any company, you would like to pursue entrepreneurship, you may contribute to EPF as a part of defined contributions, or if you decide to voluntarily set aside outside the EPF ecosystem, you can consider PRS, private retirement savings. But it doesn't mean that if you are in a public sector or if you are earning wages on a monthly basis, you cannot contribute to the private retirement scheme. So what is private retirement scheme and how different it is compared to the EPF schemes that we have? EPF is mandatory. All of us, if we have a job, it is mandatory for us to contribute, and our employer also mandatorily needs to contribute to our pension pot. And the so-called minimum threshold would be 11% for employee and about 12% for the employer. So in total, 23% of our gross would go to EPF, defined contribution scheme. But if you recall, if you read newspapers, you would know that the EPF has mentioned even with this 23% monthly contributions, most Malaysians are not having enough for their retirement. I'll come back to what is the concept of so-called basic replacement income later. But generally, we have a lot of people who are actually just having an average account of 10,000 when they reach 55 years old. So that means you need to take so-called an agency. Agency here means you need to take an action, initiative to contribute above this 22% if you want to make sure that you will be retiring comfortably. So that is what the slides is telling you. But I'm a creature of so-called I'm contrarian. And I want you two guys to understand, and this is why it's important when we talk about defined benefits. Companies, countries, they are managing their finances like we manage our household finances. I'm pretty sure some of you who might be interested in public policies or might be interested in general affairs would tune in every October, second Friday of every October, listening to the budget by the finance minister. So basically what this finance minister is doing is, okay, I'm going to tell you, this is what I intend to do with the money I collected throughout the year, right? So this is exactly how he plans, or the country plans, in terms of spending, in terms of investment. So there are two components. Investment is productive, so-called productive spending. So you need to make sure the balance between normal daily spending and also investment, so that the country will have something in return. So we cannot be continuously spend unproductively, because that will come at the expense of future growth. Similarly, for companies, at the end of the year, CFO, CEO will conduct his engagement with all of the heads, with all of the senior leaderships, and basically discuss the plan. Where do you want to actually bring this company to the next level? What are the growth? Do we need to invest more? How about if we cut a little bit of spending to accommodate for future growth? So stuff like that. This is a hard conversation every year, and some companies do 3-year planning in advance at the end of the year. But as individuals, we don't have that. We don't have that so-called deadline. But we need to do it on a constant basis. And your spending is different than your friends. So this is very critical, because like the country, when you don't have enough capacity to invest, you cut on spending. I'm not telling you that you have to cut the spending. I know that Ethan mentioned keep it to 20%. It is you. Different people have different capacity. Malaysian budget is different than Thai budget. Similarly, Malaysian budget is different than the US budget. As you know, perhaps if you reading newspaper these days, actually US has a fiscal crisis. So they also have their own issue. So the point I want to make is stop comparing. That's the biggest misconception. That is the biggest mistake you can do to yourself. when you start comparing with other people. Firstly, know yourself. Know what you need to do to invest for your own future growth. Okay, can I move on to the next slide, please? Right. I mentioned this. Some of you would probably become an entrepreneur, and it's fine. And like I said, you have two options. You can also contribute to EPF, and you can also contribute to PRS. It doesn't mean that you have to let go one over the other. Okay, Marcus, next slide. Right. On this one, so a little bit boring. I think you can read the slides, and like I said, I would like you to get something out of today's session. You spent 2 hours of your Saturday. So the concept of pension is relatively a new concept. So I can do a test to everyone. I'm pretty sure you have a ChatGPT, Gemini, Claude. When is the first national pension introduced? Anyone care to answer this? If you can answer this, you'll probably get my mobile number, and I can give you personal tutoring. Anyone care to? Sorry, let me just check the chat session. Oops. No one attempt to answer that? No one knows the answer? National pension. Okay. Okay, I said, when is national pension system was first introduced? Okay, I'll give a clue. It's okay. I will answer that. Okay, 1951, Yok Yuen. Yes, that is Malaysia. So Malaysia pension, it's not national pension, it is EPF, 1951. It is older than the country. But national pension concept, yes, perfect. Arwani, okay, good. Arwani, you probably can get my mobile number and I can start tutoring or mentoring you. Yes, it was first introduced in Germany in 1889. And it was introduced by, if you like history like me, is a guy called Otto von Bismarck. So Otto von Bismarck, if you know Germany, Germany is actually not a country before 1870s. It was just principalities. So like Chinese history, he is a very pivotal figure in German's history because he united German territories. So he united almost 49 principalities or states. In Malaysia, it's 13, 14 states. He unites 49 states and become one single unified German nation called Germany. And it was 1871. Just about more than 160 years ago. So about 160 years ago. So 1871, he created this new nation. But this nation is relatively young. And he got a lot of threat, instability, politics. So his biggest threat was from socialist movement. So there is a Workers' Party in Germany, and they were very powerful and popular. So the socialist movement tried to unseat his government. So what he did was, okay, let me join the enemy, right? You be closer to your own enemy. So his idea was, okay, I will take your idea about how we should run the society and introduce it under my government. And the biggest so-called concept that he adopted from this Workers' Party is what we call now national pensions, that he guarantees the German state will pay what we call now old age support to all German citizens when they reach 65 years old. So actually, when he first mooted the idea, he wanted to introduce 70 years old. But at that point, later on, he cut it to 65 years old. And so that's why every time we talk about retirement, we call it 65. Every time we define aging society or age nation, we refer to populations above the age of 65. He created that concept. But to be honest with you, he is a very smart man. You know why he's a smart man? Because the average expectancy of German population at that point was only 47 years old, or 42 years old for women, about 42 to 47 years old. So that means you wouldn't have to pay for Germans. I mean, there is, but because of this concept, and after that, Germans prosperous. The First World War stopped. Economy powered through. Actually, the life expectancy of Germans actually improved significantly. And by the time of 1930s, it's approaching 60 years old. But 1930s and 1940s are disrupted because of the World War II. But after the World War II, life expectancy of Germans start to improve again, and eventually it hit 72 years old, or more than 70 years old. So his idea of national pension was so revolutionary. Now, how did this concept of national pension then become mainstream? So if you know, and if you study history, the biggest so-called event of the 20th century, apart from the Cold War, is actually Second World War. A lot of people actually died. And that actually, after the World War II, countries, politicians felt that they had to protect their citizens who fought in the name of their country in war. So that's why they introduced the concept of welfare state, that the government will actually guarantee basic subsistence for its citizens. So you know it. If you study in the UK, we have that. If you study in France, we have that. In fact, if you are a student of politics, in the last 12 months alone in France, there were 3 prime ministers. Two prime ministers lost their job because of vote of no confidence. Why there were changes of the prime minister in France? Because the government tried to reform pension system in France. They tried to increase the retirement age. The issue of pension, particularly national pensions in Europe, in US, in Canada, are so sacrosanct. You know why? Because it is a social promise of a country to its citizens. So that's why they don't mind they're paying high tax. They don't mind sacrificing. They unite the history of the country on the basis that the country will protect its citizens. So it's so sacrosanct. If you try to attempt it, you need to do a referendum, at least. If you read Switzerland, when they wanted to change their retirement age threshold, they had to go to a referendum and seek consent from the people. Now, why I go to this one? Because in Malaysia, there is no national state pension. Zero. The only closest we have is what we call Department of Social Welfare that provides, I think, 100 ringgit to senior citizens under Bantuan Sara recently for the old age. So that is pittance. Okay, I'll be very upfront here. I'm not politicians or anything. This is not just Malaysia's problem. When we seek independence, most of young nations like Malaysia also face the same challenges like what Otto von Bismarck had in 19th century, which is the growing support of socialism. Okay, something tricky here, but I teach you history. But in this part of the world, most of our leaders had a strong view against socialism and Workers' Party, Labor Union, among others. So for example, the closest country, I think we all try to emulate this country because we think this country is successful, although this country is younger than us, is none other than Singapore. And if you read the history of Singapore, Mr. Lee Kuan Yew, the late Lee Kuan Yew, didn't believe in social welfare. Only recently they introduced cash subsistence. Never in the history of Singapore, because the late Lee Kuan Yew believed it is the role and responsibility of individuals to care for himself or herself and his or her family. Similarly, our forefathers also went to the same school, also had the same worldview, decided that Malaysia should not have a state pension. But we do have employment-based pensions, or what we call it occupational pensions. And they made it mandatory. Not they made it mandatory, the British Imperial actually made it mandatory. And that was in 1951 EPF. So we have almost non-existent state pensions. What we have is mandatory pension. And the mandatory pension is based on occupational model. That means once you start working, you contribute and your employer chip in. So that was the EPF, that was Co-op, that was SOCSO, that was LTAT. Okay, now this is what we call first and second pillar of pensions, but it's not enough. So that's why in 2011, 2012, the government actually introduced the concept of voluntary pension scheme, which is what now we call private retirement scheme or PRS. It's not new. This voluntary retirement scheme actually similar to the Singapore model. In Singapore, it is called SRS, Supplemental Retirement Scheme. That means you can contribute above the mandatory threshold to suit your needs. Okay, so that's pretty much the framework of the pension landscape. I'm more than happy to ask if you want to know about the history, but I think in the interest of time, I'm going to go to the next page, please. Marcus? So I mentioned just now about defined benefits and defined contributions, but almost non-existence here in defined benefit. But defined benefits are very common in the UK, very common in Canada, very common among so-called British Commonwealth, except Malaysia, Singapore, because we don't believe in so-called assistance or handouts. So defined benefits makes the employer or the states, if you are in the civil service, actually guarantee a certain form of benefits or target returns for you when you leave the workforce. In Malaysia, a lot of defined benefits, when you read in newspapers, get a so-called negative perception. That's because, and I would like you guys, I'm pretty sure all of you here, 200 people, are very smart to understand the difficulty that this country called Malaysia is facing. We are having so-called a fiscal crisis of our own. If you look in the last so-called, well, almost non-existence, in the last 15 years, we have never had a budget surplus. That means the spending of the government is actually higher than the income it collected. So they are living on a debt. So our debt, national debt has increased, has surpassed more than $1 trillion. It's something new. The last time we had a budget surplus, perhaps, I think, not so sure. Maybe it was Tun Mahathir's time in early 2000s, or maybe, yeah, about that was the last, I think, we had a budget surplus. But because of that, what does it mean? When we live on a debt, it limits our ability to provide for our so-called household. In this case, the ability of the state, of the government, to provide for their civil service. So that's why they can't do so-called consistent increment. They can't adjust the salary scale like a private sector. They can't give big bonus. In the past, maybe you guys are too young. In the past, when I was growing up, my mother was a civil servant. I recall it was okay to receive 2 or 3 months bonus if you're in a civil service, but not anymore. I mean, not even a month. It was kept. Maybe I think I can't remember. Was it 1,000, 2,000, something? So that limits your ability. So the biggest problem that we have, if you look at the spending of the government, so I encourage you, all of you, to be a responsible citizens. And if you are a finance student, I expect nothing less for you to look at Malaysian budget to start with. Look at how much government spend on emoluments. That means how much they pay salaries to their civil servants. And the second component, how much they pay for pensions, i.e. those who serve in the civil service and left the workforce. You will realize that it has comprised of more than 15%. The pension obligation has exceeded 15% of spending, of the government spending. That is unsustainable. That means whatever we collect, a ringgit, 15 cents goes to just paying pensions, let alone the emoluments, let alone paying the interest charges. So interest charges of the government alone is debatably has exceeded 15%. So if you are a finance minister and you are managing the household, you are constrained by your own resources. So that's why the government decided to phase up the defined benefits and let the so-called pension obligation fall on you. That means it becomes a self-funded mechanism. And that's exactly what we all are having when we are in the private sector. It's self-funded. Self-funded, and also self-funded means we contribute to our own future. And that's what we call defined contributions. Okay, move on. Next slide, please. Okay. So I think you all understand this, right? Like I mentioned, employee contribute, employer contribute. Now, I want again to be contrarian here so that you understand your worldview is more complete, especially when you enter the workforce. Malaysia is successful because of our past policies. But I would like to encourage you to think outside the box when you one day become a leader of your household, or the leader of your company, a leader of your society, should you decide to join politics. In 1950s and 1960s, the economic model of Malaysia is agrarian economy. I think you all know the biggest so-called invention that Malaysia did as a country is Felda. Basically, it's agrarian. We wanted to promote commodity-based economy. So we elevate the household income, and we eliminate poverty by actually leasing land, mostly a forest area, to poor people. So they got 2 acres, 3 acres in the deep jungle, and they lease. That means they have to work on the land and get a cut, so-called a percentage of the return once it matures. And eventually, after 10 or 14 years, you get the land, you get the title to the land. And that's Feldafki. So again, we are successful because we wanted to promote the agrarian economy, and eventually we become, and not just Felda, also Felcra, Risda. So basically rubber, oil palm oil in this case, right? So similar concept. And we will become successful, we become major exporter. That is our main exports, particularly two commodities, palm oil and rubber. But in 1970s onwards, the government realized that, hey, we need to actually have a hyperbolic growth curve. We need to have more value added. Our economy needs to be more sophisticated. Why it's important, I'll tell you later. And that's why they moved to manufacturing. Why I call it more sophisticated? Because the manufacturing supply chain is more sophisticated and more complicated and more far-reaching in terms of multiplier effect compared to agrarian economy. So agrarian economy may be 3 layers, right? You as a farmer, you farmed it, you sell to middleman send it to the downstream, and you get rubber scrap and perhaps send it eventually to manufacturers. So you stops that. But government wants to create a more wholesome economic model, and we move to a manufacturing-based economy. And some of you probably like to join startups, right? Or to be technologies. You guys are good user of technology. So all this so-called semiconductor. In 1969, as part of the move to go to manufacturing, Malaysia granted a free industrial zone in the state of Penang under the leadership of the late Tun Lim Chong Yu. So that's the first so-called MNC who set up base in Penang, and the factory completed in 1971 was Intel. So Intel was pivotal to the journey of Malaysia towards becoming a manufacturing, and in this case, semiconductor-based exporters. So Intel was the first to set up, and that factory in Penang, in the past, was the first factory of Intel outside US. So how important Malaysia is, when you read newspapers, you would understand, because we are the first among the early countries outside US to support the semiconductor growth in the US. Not just us, Singapore, and also Hong Kong and Taiwan, eventually at the later part of the 1970s. But if you compare to all this region, we stopped there, right? So whatever decision we have made, but however, the manufacturing, particularly semiconductor, played a very pivotal role to so-called improve our standard of living. There you go. But now, where are we? So in 1990s, Major challenge we had is Asian financial crisis. Our exporters were hit, currencies were impacted. We regulated the money flows. We introduced almost what we call managed flow or fixed interest rate actually at point, and then now we gradually remove it and become managed flows. So at that point, a lot of FDI exited the country. In response to that, apart from, you know, if you read economic history, Malaysia started nationalizing its, we started to privatize and then nationalize back after 1998 Asian financial crisis. But more importantly, in response to the challenge of exports market, Malaysia start to focus on what I call service-based economy. So what did they do? They try to promote tourism. Tourism is another part of a service-based economy that gives high multiplier effect with relatively low capital investment, relatively low cost structure, because, you know, we just sell cultures, we just sell food, we just make sure this is a nice place. We sell nature. So that's Malaysia's directions. And I think fast forward after that, they introduced cash subsistence. That means they want to promote domestic consumption. So again, service-based economy. But now the country feels that we need to elevate the economic model because there is a challenge in the past. The real challenge is for us to attract FDI and work for us to grow the manufacturing sector. The government consciously and private sector consciously adopted low-wage economic model to make us more competitive relative to our peers. So that's why if you look at our salary structure, it's relatively low. And the government subsidized private sector, you know, the utilities, water, electricity for industrial. So make it's a lot easier to set up your business here in Malaysia. But this is not sustainable. As we move towards service-based economy, we realize our spending power is very much limited. So you need to look at purchasing power parity if you're economic students. So yeah, we are still in that conversation. The country tried to elevate and change the economic model. We tried to introduce wage subsidy or progressive wage, minimum wage, many interventions the government did, but we're still early days. It's still early days. We have yet to see a real improvement in salary structure. But the point I want to make is there is a limitation to self-funded pension concept. Because when your denominator is small, even if you mandate it 25% to be mandatory savings, it's still out of a very low base. So you guys need to know that this is a structural problem. So you need to have a sense of agency to find an alternative to supplement your income or to supplement your savings. Okay, right. Now, can I move on to the next slide, please? Okay, now, here I want to talk about the concept of ROI. So the difference between this so-called savings for retirement and savings for wealth accumulation. Let me put it this way. When people save the money in ETF, although it's mandatory, it's not like we can choose not to. Or in the case of PRS, if you decide to voluntarily invest above the threshold, and if you decide, these are not wealth accumulation. You save for your future gratification. Wealth accumulations like unit trusts, if you invest directly in stock market, buy cryptos, the difference is when you save for retirement or when you save for long-term return, the government gave you tax relief. This is how the government actually incentivize you or nudge you. So your return, you might say that, hey, you know, ETF giving me 5%, PRS giving you 7%. But if I invest in, let's say, unit trust, it can give me 10%. The difference is when you calculate ROI, return on investment, you need to be mindful. Every contribution you make to that investment is eligible for tax relief. So when you study finance, actually the real calculation of your ROI should take into account the tax relief. Yeah? Because generally you have the obligation to pay on the profit you make for the purpose of wealth accumulation elsewhere. Okay. So, you guys might think, hey, I'm too early, I'm a student. I want to encourage you to become a responsible citizen. Take the issue of tax seriously. And this is in the US they got independence because of the tax. They feel that they need to decide on the tax. They need to be empowered to decide on tax, and that's why they went against the British colonial master. And obviously, if you study history, it's called Boston Tea Party clash. The idea is once you get into the workforce and later on, maybe you start from a very low scale because the tax structure in Malaysia is progressive. Progressive means only of a certain high income threshold, you will be eligible, you are required to pay tax. And as you hit higher and higher, there is a different scale. So although you may not fall into that category, you need to know at some point tax, you still have a tax obligation as citizens of this country. So that's why be mindful, be engaged. If you think government takes money and not spend unnecessarily, you need to voice out. And if you think our tax structure is too high and doesn't go to productive investment, doesn't go to support your household and its citizens, you speak up. So take the issue of tax seriously. But at some point in your career, you will start be paying tax. So that's why you need to allocate extra saving for the right reason. So when you spend for a short-term gratification and wealth accumulations, you may not be able to so-called utilize the tax relief. But when you actually invest for the long term, you can get tax relief. And maybe at this point, again, I want to teach you something so that you get something out of this. I want you to know one thing, that investment is a broad concept. Investment is not just money. Have you heard people say that, hey, I invest with my time. I invest with my time. I need to be rewarded. I coach you and stuff like that, right? Stuff like that. So investment need not necessarily use money. That's what we call financial investment. But there is all other types of investment. And this is, I want you to get it early from the start. Active in your active income, passive in your passive income. So what does it mean by active and passive income? This is rule 101, very basic. A lot of people feel that, hey, my monthly salary is given. I don't have to I don't have to invest in myself to uproot myself. That's wrong. You need to be active with your active income. Active income means your occupational wages, your monthly wages. How do I be active in my active income? You need to invest here, you need to invest here, you need to invest in here. That means invest in yourself, invest in your brain, invest in your eyes, invest in your body. How do you invest in your brain? You read, you learn. That's how you reskill yourself. That's how you upskill yourself. That's how you get the performance in your deliverables, in your work. Do better than others. Why I raise this point? Because if you buy books every year, you are given a tax relief of up to 2,000. You will know this once you get into the job market, right? So the point is the government incentivizes you to read, to gain knowledge, to reskill yourself, to upskill. If you take classes, let's say STEM classes or whatever, you are eligible for tax deduction. So a lot of things, the idea of tax here, tax relief is for investment, for productive investment. In this case is productive investment in yourself. Now, I mentioned just now, how do you be active in your active income, which means that your monthly salaries. Invest in your brain, invest in your eyes, invest in your body. Now, second part, invest in your eyes. What does it mean? I know Ethan mentioned, and some of you who may have heard this, limit yourself to 20% wants. But I don't want you to so-called not understand the entire concept of wants and needs and growth. My point is, let me tell you a story. So I have this Malaysian friend who studied with me in the UK. He went to he went to a great school, good school, engineering. He's one of the most, I think, brilliant engineering students. I was an engineering student. I was a law student. So he went to Imperial, studied engineering. And he came from a very poor family. He got scholarship to get there. When he was there, he didn't even eat out. He didn't go out. He didn't travel. He saved every bit of extra so-called scholarship he had. And I had a conversation with him. And I said this to him. I'm okay to actually bring you out, we're friends, so we can take turns to pay our bills. So the point I want to make to him is, you may not have another chance. You may have a chance in the future to visit foreign countries as a tourist. But this might be your only chance to live your life in a foreign land. My point is, I want him to understand and learn from other people. That's what I call invest in your eyes. When you travel, although it is for self-indulgence, try to make it productive. That means when you go to Vietnam, observe how the people there live their life, how the economy was run, how the market system works, how the transport system works. What do they do so well? What is the attributes of the people? Learn. This is what we call experience or exposure. If you're in a private sector, they like to call it exposure. Be exposed. So you do not know, you might end up in a consumer market and suddenly, your product is exported to Vietnam, but you have no clue how Vietnamese actually live their life. What is the most important demand? It's very simple. The history, if you go to Putrajaya, you realize it is a boulevard, a road system. And you realize the concept is there is a traffic light. But when it turns left, there is no traffic light directly. It is given, if there's no traffic, you turn left. That is because they emulate a system in Washington. So that's why I said some incremental improvement we learn from others. Yeah. So invest in your eyes. When you travel, gain something out of it. Observe. Last, invest in yourself. Go. If you need to go to the gym, improve your stamina, live a healthy life, eat healthily, sign up to a membership, go. You need to plan accordingly, not to do it beyond your means. But my point is, people have 365 days. All of us have the 365 days. All of us possibly work about 250 days a year. But you have your friends, colleagues, who actually take MC 16 days a year, or maybe even use more than 16 days for MC, maybe hospitalized for 2 months for chronic disease. My point is, that is stamina. People who work diligently for out of 250 days are more likely to get promotion than those people who take MC unnecessarily. Okay? Or who fall sick regularly. So my point is, invest in your body, invest in your stamina. That will be your personal investment. Why? I said active in your active income, because the easiest way to have a 20%, 10% increment on a yearly basis is not to buy any stock, not to buy some Darby. I mean, it's not guaranteed, or not to buy, I don't know, some small petty stocks, but actually invest in yourself, because most likely you will get a promotion. Most likely you will get an increment above others. So that is the product of active investment in active income. Now, passive investment, passive with your passive income, that means once you have a save, a lot of us fall into the trap thinking that we are better wealth manager than other people. We are better fund manager than other people. We are better investors. Just because we read Warren Buffett, we think we can become Warren Buffett. My point is, you need to allocate that savings pot, that some of them will be managed professionally. Either if retirement will be managed by EPF or managed by other fund managers, or you can buy unit trust managed by PNB. Let's say if you're Malay, you subscribe to ASB. Accept the fact that there are other people who do this regularly on daily basis. So know that. So when you want to invest in a stock, not entire amount of excess surplus or excess savings. Don't gamble an entire amount of your surplus directly managing that portfolio by direct investment in financial markets. Unless you are industry, unless you have attended so many classes, unless you know what the risk involved. That's my point. Because a lot more probability that you will lose the money by being active in your passive income. The concept of passive income means your excess surplus or excess savings. But you also need to be make sure that this surplus or saving must be put in yielding asset. Even if, let's say, you have a balance in your bank account, make sure if you can put it in a savings account, put it in TIA, term deposit, earning basic interest. And if you believer with Islamic finance, put it in an account that gives you a guarantee or fixed profit. Yeah? So my point is, don't let any excess surplus yielding zero. But bear with me that not all amount should be managed actively. This is a simple analogy, a simple observation I give it to people. I said, I have come across a few billionaires, I've come across many millionaires, and none of them trade stocks actively. They focus a lot of their time daily in building their business, in their active income. Most of the wealth is managed professionally, either by their private banker, either by their fund manager, or family office. So my point is, emulate this. Don't spend more time checking on the screen of the stock market and gamble entirely with your excess savings, and not on neglecting your daily job, because your daily job provides you with active income. And highly likely, you are guaranteed with good performance and deliverables, you will get above inflation increment, if not promotions, that give you maybe double-digit return. Okay, if I can move on to the next slide, please. Okay, now, sorry, the slide is prepared by my staff, but like I said, I'll try to give you more nuggets than this. Now, like I said, if you decides to travel, if you decides to buy ones, yeah, I mean, a lot of people say that is it wrong for me to buy my wants? Is it wrong if I buy clothes, fancy clothes? To me, it's not wrong if you know exactly what you're buying. My point is, and the reason behind the purchase. Reason is, I encourage young ones to spend, not to spend, I'll call it maybe to invest in yourself. That's maybe the better words. Because look proper, look professionally is part of the expectation when you get to the job market. So my point is, it's highly likely your boss will notice you if you are presentable, approachable. It is highly likely you get a promotion if you are seen as reliable. That means you don't fall sick easily. And dependable. That means you can deliver on your job. That means your skills. So if you decide to if you decide to spend, turn that spending to something that is productive. Okay. So I mean, a lot of people say save, and expect you not to buy new clothes every year. I mean, to me, that's foolhardy. I mean, and save and not travel. I mean, that's also foolhardy. Trust me. You learn a lot from your travel. You learn a lot from other people. You learn a lot from other societies. Can I put on? Can I move on to the next page, please? Right. Okay. Now the concept of work. Again, like I said, if you recall, I mentioned 65 years old is so-called retirement age. But the concept of retirement is an evolving concept. It is like what Margaret Thatcher saying, there's no such thing as society, because the concept of society is a social construct. The idea of retirement is a social construct. It's made up by this guy called Otto von Bismarck. So no one size fits all. Some people want to retire early, like 40. Some people want to retire 50. So what retirement means? Retirement means to me is financial freedom. Financial freedom that allows you to pursue what you like with your life. So some people still working, although they have hit retirement age. For example, you may retire at 40, leave the market and you want to do business. That's something that excites you. Or you do charitable work, or you play the stock market, that's something that excites you. You like investing. So be it. It doesn't mean that when you hit a retirement, a phase of retirement, you don't have to work. Similarly, even if you reach 65, most of us still have to work. If you go and take Grab, there's still old people driving Grab. Some people work because they have to, not because they want to. So retirement is about allowing people to reach the states that when you decide to work, is because you want, not because you have to. So I don't know, all of you may have a different target, but when you do a retirement calculator, which is the next page, you must set aside what's the target when you hit that age. So that, again, like I said, retirement is an evolving concept. Can I move on to the next page, please? Okay, next page. Okay, next page. Again, my staff made this, right? Okay, now, this is what I wanted to mention to you. Malaysians now, life expectancy is 77. So if you decide to retire, let's say, although this page says 60, let's say you decide to retire at 50 and you want to do something. So you need to make sure you have something to sustain you between 50 to 77, let's say, which is 27. But a lot of people say, the wrong about retirement calculator is they let you know exactly what to achieve when you hit 50. But they don't tell you what would be done, what would you do with that amount. Actually, it's not just spending. If you have what we call this is decumulation stage. Decumulation stage means your your investment ROI may be slightly lower than your accumulation stage, but you still need to put that money to work. There's a lot of, again, misconceptions that when you get your EPF money, I will spend. I'll do whatever I want to do with it. And forget the fact that that money needs to be set aside. So that's why I keep telling people, if you get your EPF money, yes, you want that flexibility. You want to take the money out because you might need it for your health reason. You might need it for your kids who wants to get married, whatever the reason is, but you must put it immediately in high yielding instruments. And then you draw down as you see fit. So that is the accumulation. My point is that mathematics has a different angle to it. So that means the money can still grow to sustain your life up until you hit so-called your mature age. Okay, can I move on to the next page, please? Right, okay, next page. I think you all know this, that's why you're here today. I hope you are not one of those who are in the 23%. Okay, but maybe my message is this for you. Okay, Marcus, move on to the next page, please. My message to you is you don't need, and I think one of the biggest misconceptions to a lot of young people and B40 in particular is that you need to have money to make money. You need to have money to invest. You need 10,000, you need 20,000. No, that is foolhardy. Many now financial products accept as low as 100 ringgit. I mean, if you're Malay, ASB accept, I think, as low as 10 ringgit. So for PRS, to save for your retirement, you can start your journey with 100 ringgit. So my point is you don't have to wait until you have so-called enough savings. Yes, thanks. Yeah, even digital bank offer 2 to 4%. So put that money to work. But of course, if you want to set aside for a certain reason, and of course you are incentivized with tax relief, I must encourage you that you must seek above inflation. And I'll come back to the concept of inflation shortly, return. Okay. So the adequacy, how much? Again, my question is, it doesn't have to be, it doesn't have to begin with 10,000. Sufficiency, again, is your expectation of where you want to hit it. You don't have to plan until 465. You can plan it for 40. Now, for example, for PRS, you're allowed to take the money to settle your mortgage. So that means if you want to fully pay your house by the age of 50, maybe you put a target 50. If you want to say for the age of 40, you want to withdraw 30% of the PRS for health reason, not because you expect you're going to go fall ill. Is because you know by the time when you hit 40, your insurance premium will go up significantly, and I need to pay that insurance premium moving forward. You can draw down from your PRS. Because my point is, you must make sure that you have enough coverage till the day you leave the workforce, till the day you don't have a consistent income. So a lot can be done from your retirement account. My point is, don't look at it just because, okay, I want to get this money when I hit 65. There are many reasons. So that concept of how long is very much personal. Now, the third concept of sustainability. Now, inflation, a lot of us in school would learn that inflation is a concept of time, yearly. How much it increase in the living expenses is a concept of time, true. And no one tells you, no one tells you that, hey, inflation will decline. I mean, there are cases where we call it deflation, but it is a big problem if you have it persistently. But more often than not, you would hear from your grandmother or your mother that, my time, if I buy nasi lemak, it's 1 ringgit, now it's 2 ringgit. You can accept the fact that inflation is here to stay and it's a function of time. But I want also to mention to you one thing. Inflation is also a product of lifestyle. So your lifestyle is different than other people. Your basket, also called CPI, which is a consumer price index, you being the consumer, is different than someone next to you today. So my point is how sustainable it is, it depends on you. Now, if I ask you now, just wanted to make it engaging, what is the inflation in Malaysia? Anyone there to answer just now? Irwani gets my personal tutorial. Now, anyone would dare to put it? What is inflation in Malaysia now? Core inflation. Anyone dare to answer? No? Or do you know what is inflation? Anyone knows it? Or maybe I assume, okay, 3%. Thank you. Anything. 1. Good. Yeah. Generally is about, 2 to 3%. Actually, slightly lower than 3. But inflation to individual might be different. And somebody asked me, what is the best fund manager? To me, the best fund manager must make sure that they deliver real return. Real returns mean the return, excess of return above inflation. Yes, 2.1%. Fayuzin, you got it right. So usually about 2 to 3%, but we can say that is 2 to 3%. Now, so what is the real rate of return? Must be above that. So if anyone gives you just about 3.5%, somebody gives you 4%, the other person gives you 5%, obviously the real rate of, let's say, 3%, in case you give 5%, is the better fund manager. Assuming that individual inflation is 5%. Why I call it 5% or 5-6%? It depends. Like I said, typically your so-called consumption basket will be different than what Bank Negara tells you. Because the Bank Negara didn't tell you that you need to pay for your tuition, doesn't need to pay for your travel. Maybe the component is different. So assuming it's double. So at least 5 to 6%. If that is so-called the minimum threshold for you to invest, that means you need to earn something of that 5 to 6%. That means in 6-7 years, you need to not double your money, half your money. It means if you save 10% now, in 5 years' time, it has to be 15,000. Okay, how do I do that? Simple. If you have, 50% is 50, 51, let's say it's 50 to 52%, depending if you invest there is a cost to investment, let's say because of you trading, whatever you need to pay, brokerage charges and all that, assuming it's about slightly more than 50%. So the square root of 52, 53% is about 7.2. So that means you need to have consistently 7% to hit the 52% target. 5 years, 6 years time. So that is the threshold. So it's different than individual. My point is, I don't know your consumer basket, but when you answer the question of sustainability, it depends. But if you think your set is too high, but you are unable to take on risk, that means you cannot take the volatility of investment product that's supposed to give you 7-8% annualized. That means it's mostly stocks. That means you have to adjust again your consumption basket, your lifestyle. That is the easiest way to bring down the expectation. Okay, so there are three components. But my point is, inflation is not one size fits all. And number two, there is no one magic number for your inflation. It is also a product of lifestyle. In fact, the fallacy of most of us is thinking that our inflation, individual inflation, is fixed. Trust me, the biggest inflation is when you hit 30 to 40 years old, because you are building a family. Your expenses will significantly increase once you start to have a kid, when you start to get married. I don't encourage you to stay single for life, although I know there is a trend now in Vietnam and Thailand and Singapore for professionals to stay single. But my point is, even inflation for individuals are different at their different life stages. So the problem is, even when you start building your excess savings, at that point, your inflation is actually a lot higher. So that means it will eat out your excess saving. Not only that it will eat out your excess saving, your remaining saving needs to be put in high risk product for you to be, again, sustainable. Yeah. So when you hit at 40 and plus, maybe again at that point, different inflation, different kind of expenses, different kind of a so-called spending basket, hopefully you can start to taper down your risk activity. Although you may want to stay for long. But the point I want to make is, and this is the biggest policy that applicable to all, including those members of private retirement scheme, is that you cannot change your strategy. Because for us, we sell funds. So you can only buy retirement funds once you become a member. So we have 79 funds across different strategies. My point is, you need to switch between strategies depending on your excess savings and target return. So you don't have to sit with one size fits all. This is not just a passive savings instrument. It's not ASB that is treated like a fixed deposit. It is not a TIA that is designed to just give you above so-called inflation target. So you can change your funds, you can change your product based on your strategy. And your strategy is a function of these three questions. How adequate do you have left? How sufficiency you try to attain? And how sustainable you want it to be, which is a product of your lifestyle. Okay, can I move on to the next page? Okay, I think I'm running out of time, so I think we have covered this, Marcus. So speed up. Next page. Okay, next page. Retirement calculator. Yeah, okay, this one. I think you've done this before. If you want me to be very frank, this calculator is not sufficient. And even the calculator before, the normal typical calculator you see on the web is not sufficient. Not sufficient because it depends. For now, we can only put EPF balance, PRS balance. I don't know what you have. My point is, if you really truly want to have a proper retirement calculator, you need to be detailed. Detailed at exploring your asset size. Okay. When I mentioned about the government just now, if you realize, we only focus on the income statement. We didn't look at the balance sheet, which is the asset and liability. So here, like I said, is a very simplistic. What you learned just now is also simplistic. You need to know exactly, do I have land? Do I have a house? Is that asset is actually a liability for now? It is not fully funded. So you need to be more detailed to know exactly your target return. Okay, but this is simplistic. You can scan this, you can find it on the web. But my point is, if you want to not just current salary, not just EPF balance, not just PRS balance, you need to itemize every asset you have, and if this asset yielding any interest, or is still a liability, it's still funded through leverage. How much is your leverage? Yeah. So do it yourself. Start simple. The point I want to make is you need to have a sense of agency. You need to manage your household like you are the finance minister. Okay, can I move on to next page? Okay, this again, simplistic. I think they did it before, so I'm not going to do that. But I'm going to touch this. Sorry, maybe move on. Okay, previous. Concept of fair value. Some of you may be not a finance student. So fair value, which is the FV there, is also a product of what we call a discount rate. So this is a projection further forward. So you expect what return you need to get. But like I said, times changes. So you cannot have one size fits all. When you hit 30, suddenly economy takes a hit or interest rate goes up. So your liability suddenly spiked up. So you need to adjust, right? So this FB, you need to have some form of discount. So I always say that fair value needs to also look from the point of a discount rate. So what is the biggest discount rate? And I want all of you need to know is inflation, is interest rate. The good thing about you all in Malaysia is interest rate is almost a boring topic. And so if you look at the graph, it's pretty much do not change. Hardly you hear Bank Negara try to cut the interest rate on a yearly basis. But in the US, interest rate does. But that is a fallacy. I want to teach you and make you become a smarter person. That benchmark rate is one component. It is just a reference rate. But for individuals, you need to look at what you call it variable rates. So you need to look at other interest rate. Interest rate is not one. Interest rate many. The point is it's just a cost of money or cost of liability. Leverage. So you look, if you're mortgage, you look at your BLR. You look at what is the mortgage rate available. So that changes. Although interest rate do not change, it changes. It changes for other reason other than interest rate, benchmark interest rate. It is reason because of functions of economic uplift. It changes because of the functions of availability of deposit and availability of liquidity in the market. So you need to know the prices changes because most of us as individual, most probably at some point will take leverage in our life, and most of our leverage possibly tied to a variable rate or flexi rate. Yeah, so it changes. So make sure you know what is the discount rate. You may have a figure, but that discount rate changes as we proceed, depending on market conditions. Okay, but like I said, generally you need to seek to have an annualized of about 6 to 8%. Here it says 5%, but I tell you, you need annualized rate, annualized. Why I call it annualized? Again, I need to teach you guys this. Like stock market, there is up and down. Life is also ups and down. There is no linear curve to investment. Okay, so what you need to do is there is a volatility, but because we invest is for a long term, for immediate, not immediate term, you need to focus on annualized figure. That means, let's say 3 year, what is a 3 year annualized? Not a total return, because it can be up and down. At some point, it can go down 10%. Next year, it goes up by 20%. It's still zero. But the point I want to make is there is a volatility in all financial instruments. So you need to look if for investment, and if it's for retirement investment, you need to look at long-term annualized figure. Okay, can I move on to the next page, please? Okay, I think I've done touch this. Maybe I can wrap up. Can we just go to the last page? Okay. Need to wrap up, I think too much, yeah. Okay. Sorry, you can get these slides if you need, but like I said, yeah, I would encourage you to take the survey so that I know exactly your kind of readiness, so that when we do something, we can tailor to your needs. We can incentivize and nudge you properly. So do sign up, scan, and give us a feedback so that PPA as a one-stop center for PRS will do better in delivering our service to you. Hopefully, one day you become a member. So I do not know, Savin, do you want to take this? Do you want me to take any questions? I'm running out of time, so yeah, over to you.
Thank you, Mr. Taufik. Would you like to continue with the Q&A session?
Yes, please. I think I prefer that rather than going through the slides.
Okay.
If there is any.
If you guys have any questions to our speaker, you may type your questions on the chat box.
Or alternatively, given that, you guys probably run out of time for lunch, what you can do is follow me at LinkedIn and do drop me a note at LinkedIn. My name is Taufik Iskandar, Taufiq. Iskandar, Iskandar, and I'm more than happy to answer your question there if you drop me a note. Okay, Yoke Ian Wong, yeah. Yes, you're right. 13.5%. And you can't substitute your cosmetic brand mostly because I know ladies are very loyal to their brand. So yeah, you have to take that into account. This is not captured by CPI tracked by Bank Negara. To individually have a different inflation. Okay. Faiz mentioned. Generally, there's no one answer to this, but I can give you a general answer. Yes, the answer is yes, because I assume Faiz, you are young. So you can take on risk because you are young. You have time in the world. Okay, I give you as individual and a little bit more philosophical here. Time is an asset. It is punishing for you. You think that, oh, I have not grown up early. I wish I have a car right now. I wish I have a what do you call it? Ferrari when I'm 21. Yeah. All of us have that dream. But you are young. But time is an asset to you. Because if every slight action you take today will compound much faster than for us who begins when we are 40. So that's one. So you need to start today. Number two, when I start, okay, I need to compound it aggressively, right? So that's why you need to take on risk. But risk here varies. What is your risk tolerance varies. And a lot of people think there's no one size fits all. So you have this question of risk appetite. Usually they tied it to the age because, like I said, time. The moment you have, the longer you have time, the higher is the compounded. So you are able to take on risk. But I want to tell you one thing: risk profile is actually a function of your life experiences. I don't know. Somebody who came from a rich family most probably can tolerate high risk because they feel comfortable, they think they have a support system. Most who are not from well-to-do family usually know and very careful with every single excess surplus they have. So they become risk averse by nature, by life experiences. So that's why there's no one size fits all. I'm thinking differently, but I want to flip this. That's why I said, remember this concept of active in your active income. One drawback of people from well-to-do family, usually they are not resilient. That means they have never been tested before. They have not seen life hardships, adversity. For those who are coming from less well-off, you are tested. You have seen what life can give you. You basically make lemonade out of every lemon given to you. So be active, be hungry, be diligent. You most probably will succeed in your life and probably grow your excess saving much faster than others. Already have 22% mandatory EPF contribution, which is in line with recommended minimum. Okay, why would EPF savings still not sufficient? The answer, Yoke, very simple. It's a low base. It's denominator. You can put it 50%, and if you still earn 2,000 after 5 years working, there is not enough. So it's a structural problem. But the government tries very hard to flip that model by introducing, as recent as last year, progressive wage subsidy. That means we try to move the base salary to above 3,000. But let's see whether it's successful. For now, many people say that long-term investment is not relevant like 10, 20 years before because many people invest more in hit and run because market too volatile. You are right, Faiz. So market is more volatile, not just because of Trump, but generally it's more volatile because there is excess liquidity, and amplified by ETF and momentum-driven strategy. So if you know, in 2008, central bank in the US pumped money. They create money and they pump into the system. We call it quantitative easing. And you know how much money they created? More than 8 times over the 10-year period. So a lot of savings available and put to market. So market is susceptible. So, and volatile as a result of that. So you need to know that volatility. But if you read books, I would encourage you to read a book called The Most Important Thing by Howard Marks. That volatility is always given as approximate of risk, but it's wrong. Risk is actually not volatility. Risk is actually probability of you losing your money. So market can be volatile, but if you already make money, you can stomach. So that's why I said momentum strategy is becoming more prevalent. Because let's say you are NVIDIA. Let's say you buy NVIDIA at the price of, let's say, 150. And now let's say the price is 500. So let's say market is volatile now, 500 tank to 400. Actually, for you, it means nothing because you are still in the money. So that's why that's not a risk to you. So you can tolerate that. In fact, you see that as an opportunity, volatility as a source of opportunity because you average, dollar averaging. So that's why I said the concept of loss, risk is very much a big concept. Yeah. So it depends on the point of starting. So in this case, yes, be careful where you start. Yeah. As per your explanation from your POV point of view, at what age or life phase you consider that you should go defensive for the retirement basket? Okay, again, like I said, it is not age. To me, it's not age. It's about your life phase. When you cannot tolerate the loss. Again, how do you tolerate the losses is a function of what you have. Savings, right? Like I said, if I have 1 million in my banking account, even if market is volatile 15%, I can tolerate because I have excess savings, right? The difficulty of this so-called factoid is that you start low and you start with nothing or small, and yet you were asked to take on risk because you are young, but actually your tolerance to loss is very low because I can gamble with my excess saving that is only 2,000, you see. Because if I lost it, I lost it in my entire savings. So that's what I meant just now. The concept of losses is not a function of volatility, it's a function of probability. How tolerant are you to losses? Now, so that's why I said when it comes to passive income, when it comes to your retirement savings, when it comes to excess savings, start with passive. That means start with unit trust, start with retirement accounts, start with retirement products. Once you build up that excess, you can take on with direct. That means you can buy shares directly. Unless you have a good social support, family support, you probably can take on more risk. So that's my view again, that the risk-taking ability depends on your life's experiences or background. Sad to say, but that's why the problem of inequality is very prevalent, not only in US, but also in Malaysia. Because people who already have, they have, most probably can take on more risk and be successful in their life. Sorry if I give you a very sad answer, but I want you to know that it is beyond that. Any other questions? Sorry, I just answer rather in short. But I hope you learned something. And you guys are still young, so I hope you can still make a mark in your life. Like I said, start with your career. Be active with your active income. The easiest way for you to make return is to be successful at your work. And when it comes to investment, like I said, you can start as low as 100. But the critical part is be diligent. That means contribute, be disciplined. You can go far in your life. Okay, Savin. Anyway, like I said, I've got a LinkedIn, just drop a note. My turnaround time could take more than 24 hours, but I will answer all those messages. Yeah.
Thank you very much for the enlightening session just now, Mr. Taufik. Learned a lot. Thank you once again. And now we will proceed with the photo taking session. Kindly ensure that every participant please turn on your cameras so that we can continue with our photo taking sessions.
Do you want me to leave? Sorry, I'm just wondering. Yeah.
No, everybody is included, including the speakers.
Okay, perfect.
Thank
Okay.
you, everybody. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you very much. Have a lovely weekend. It's a very pleasure to be with you all. And all the best in your life. Thanks. Bye for now.
Ladies and gentlemen, as the saying goes, to every beginning, there is an ending. We have come to an end to our fruitful Session 3 Retirement Planning e-workshop for Youth 2025. Once again, I would like to repeat these important items. Please submit your evaluation latest by 2 p.m. The link can be found on the chat box. Please be reminded that the MFPC CPD point will be updated and the e-certificates will be emailed to you after 14 working days, and the MFPC CPD points and e-certificates will only be issued to those who completed evaluation form at the end of the session. Profound gratitudes to our speaker, licensed financial planner and certified MFPC trainer, Mr. Ethan, Chief Executive Officer of Private Pension Administrator, Mr. Taufik, our host university, University Malaysia Terengganu UMT, University in attendance, International Islamic University Malaysia IIUM, University Pendidikan Sultan Idris UPSI, Segi University, University Sanwi, Inti International University, University Utara Malaysia UUM, University Sultan Zainal Abidin, UNIZA, Taylor's University, University Kuala Lumpur, UniKL, University Kebangsaan Malaysia, UKM, Tunku Abdul Rahman University of Technology and Management, TAR UMT, University Malaysia Pahang, UNP, University of Malaya, and University Putra, UPM. On behalf of MFPC, if there is any inconvenience caused, please accept our sincere apology, and any of your feedback is highly appreciated for us to make our program better. Once again, from Malaysian Financial Planning Council, we thank everyone for attending our event and we truly appreciate it. You guys can also scan the QR for the evaluation form.